right, welcome to the Goals.com podcast. Today we're diving into the world of alternative investments and sales strategy with Mark Peck, Vice President of Business Development at Directed Trust Company. With over 17 years in financial services and a proven track record for leading growth, Mark brings a unique perspective on what it takes to build trust, drive revenue, and lead in fast-evolving private markets. Mark, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Andrew. Appreciate you having me and excited to be with you on the Goals.com podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Goals.com, the sales performance platform built to help teams stay focused, motivated, and on track. While most CRMs just track data, Goals.com drives real results. It's simple, affordable, and designed to help your sales team hit targets faster, without the headache of complex setup or costly consultants. Whether you're using a CRM or not, Goals.com works seamlessly to elevate your performance. Book a fun, fast demo today at Goals.com.
Mark, can you start by telling us a little bit about Directed Trust and your role in the company?
Sure. So we're a specialized bank, and we don't create loans, and we're not in the business of lending money. Really, our business is safekeeping and holding assets for specialized accounts like retirement plans. The real reason why people use this and what we're good at is pairing things like private investments, like private stock or real estate, with these unique accounts. So a small business who wants to capitalize a new deal, maybe they want to utilize their 401k to make that happen. They use a provider like us away from the more traditional Wall Street players.
You've led business development at high growth companies like Forge and now Directed Trust. What core sales principles have stayed consistent throughout your career?
Yeah, good question. And I grew up in a slightly different sales culture. It was dialing for dollars, especially in the financial services world. It was just pounding the phones, not necessarily a continuous value add relationship, but more of a transactional business. I think the shift that I've seen and I've been happy to be a part of is a little bit of a move towards longer term consultative value add relationships that provide value for that customer, in a repeated way over time, not just a single transaction.
Sure. Makes sense. What do you believe separates a good sales professional from a truly elite one in today's B2B financial services landscape?
Yeah, that's a good one. Technical acumen is important. Understanding the landscape, critical as well. So you definitely need a high degree of technical and operational expertise to bring to the table. But I would say the real skill, and where I'm always impressed when I get to interact with other folks who are leaders as well, is when they're able to translate those complex concepts and issues into really digestible conversational pieces that you can just work with a potential client around in an easy, more informal way to help them feel comfortable and really get to the heart.
How do you coach or guide your team to navigate long and complex sales cycles, especially in a space like private markets where trust and compliance are key?
For sure. Our sales cycles are around 6 to 12 months. They're not incredibly not long, not like a huge tech package that might take years, for instance, but more than a few months often as well. And so I think it's establishing a good cadence for us. Like, we should know our ideal customer profile and sort of how those good deals close, like what's a good case study. So let's try to keep them on that 6-month calendar if we can, and adhering to that internally, making sure we stay true to those follow-ups and those checkpoints. And I would say, as well, as we move through the process with the prospect and hopefully new client, really being open and clear with them about where we are in the journey for them, right? Planning, building it out, testing, implementation, just being really clear and precise for everybody so we know where we're at and where the next step hopefully takes us.
What's your approach to setting sales goals? Do you prioritize stretch targets or achievable milestones when driving performance?
Well, having had it both ways as a team member and a manager, I do think it's the most fair to sort of think about your P&L and your budget, set those baseline goals that are required for the team, to keep the lights on, to stay in business, to meet those minimum revenue requirements. I think that's a key place to start. and then add and layer on those stretch goals on top of that. We at our company we have like some bonus incentives. So you hit your comp level, you hit your baseline quota. That's great. We do have incentives to go above and beyond that. I don't like to put people in a position where we know we're aiming too high for them. I think for some people they can handle that, but especially for newer folks on the team, like I would rather be simple, transparent, and fair and forthright on what we all need for success. And then if we get beyond that, like that's wonderful.
Yeah, achievable goals is key. For sales professionals not deeply familiar with the private markets, how would you explain the opportunity and complexity of this space?
It means a lot of different things, but think that really the idea of private markets is just investment and capital transactions away from publicly registered companies. So a really traditional and simple asset class that all people are familiar with is real estate, right? So that's, it's a bit opaque. It doesn't quite move in the same with the same speed and like scale that other investment classes have reached now. Public stocks, things like that, are so accessible. So the private markets are really there because they're rewarding things like illiquidity, investing in companies for a long time, this ability to have to research and differentiate really specifically like the details of a private stock and a private company. Those are all the facets of private markets that provide challenges but also opportunity. You can find better returns typically, and especially for the affluent base that we're fortunate to serve, a lot of times they're fortunate to have a good pool of assets already, many in the traditional space, and they're looking to move into bridge and to diversify away from that into a small business, into real estate, into crypto, things like that that are non-traditional.
Why do you think interest in alternative investments is growing so rapidly among both retail and institutional investors?
Yeah, well, it really started with the Yale foundational model, Yale endowment model, going back, 30, 40 years at this point, um, which really demonstrated, with long time horizons, which most, let's call it family office types or a lot of wealth managers and their clients have, decades of perspective for their goals. Pairing private assets really helps give you differentiated returns, and in times of distress, it does add a diversifying, stabilizer to your portfolio. And we've seen that through the great financial crisis, most recently in some of the ups and downs since, COVID. Um, there certainly is risk and pitfalls, but when done correctly, it really gives you a chance to evolve your portfolio beyond just the basic 60/40 stocks and bonds.
What role does education play in selling alternative investment solutions, and how do you tailor the conversation based on your audience?
A huge role. Education is really, I would say, the critical element in our relationships and our customer relationships and how we build trust and how we work with prospects to get them converted from interested, ready to take action all the way through to a successful, fulfilled client. There are many exciting strategies. There's all sorts of great stuff we could talk about. We could make the podcast, hours on these kind of, geeky tax and private market subjects, but I think it's really important to understand that audience and to start at a approachable, digestible place for them, and not to sell past it either, right? Like if they ask about one thing, just help them stay focused on that. Help them deliver value and education around that question. Don't let your own knowledge, which may be very robust and broad, sort of lead you astray into other channels or ideas that they're not really there for. Because there is so much to digest, I think you really have to stay focused in your sales calls and your delivery of like your content to stay true to what that prospect is asking about in that moment, not letting it wander too far.
Directed custody positions itself as a technology-driven solution. How has technology changed the way you approach business development and client relationships?
Yeah, it's changed over the years in the way that our customers expect us to deliver value. Especially things like the private markets have traditionally been very paper-based, a lot of PDFs, a lot of long, subscription materials and things like that are just heavy, heavy text documents. We've really tried on our side to minimize that as much as possible, and we're also the beneficiary of our peers and vendors in the space doing the same thing. So now, we try to get through investment directions and these packets that have to be completed, they can all be done pretty much either digitally or e-signature. That's where firms like DocuSign, HelloSign have been really helpful, as well as like cash management is critical. The ability to move cash with speed and precision has just increased over the years. Like you can move dollars in a day now, usually with little friction. So we're the beneficiary of firms like Plaid and Stripe, making that lot more possible too. And then we have our own responsibility to maintain our own proprietary tech. Like we have our own customer portal, and so we're bringing those elements into the customer portal to give them good value. But we can't do it all. So you've got to choose good vendors, bring their tech in, and then build where you need to sort of bridge those things all together.
Absolutely. How do you think fintech is reshaping the traditional sales process in financial services? And how can sales teams adapt to stay ahead?
This is a good question, one I've been thinking about. I'm not sure I have all the answers, but we'll try to see if we can highlight some good opportunities. I think fintech is interesting. It comes in so many shapes and sizes, but I'll take a really good example that I'm very interested in. If you think about like insurance, so insurance underwriting and then insurance claims, like incredibly manual and bespoke process traditionally, and something we've all dealt with. Like if you have insurance and you have to make a claim, it's a choppy process, a lot of back and forth, and usually there's a human element there, but might not feel super efficient or have that good digital first experience that you're used to in other places of your life. So there are some really interesting companies that are, taking an AI first approach to insurance where all of their underwriting is AI based, and then there's a human oversight component, and then the same on the claim process. And so you're able, and I haven't dealt with this myself, but I know some folks that have as like clients, and then just in the space, the news is that, you can get a claim processed in 24 to 48 hours, all digitally, because of their tech first approach. And to me, that's just an incredibly powerful example of how you can strip away some of the burdensome bureaucracy of financial services, and really, not that you're not going to stay compliant and be compliance first. You want to do the right thing for your customer and you want to stay compliant with the regulations, but finding a way to do that expeditiously through technology just makes everybody experience better.
For sure. You've worked at the intersection of sales, finance, and innovation. What habits or routines have helped you consistently perform at a high level?
I think, you've got to be good at building relationships. That's key for any sales and business development leader, as we all know, right? And you've got to have your own personal approach to build rapport. Remembering stories about people's kids and stuff like that, right? Those classic tools still remain, and you've got to have that skill set. But I think it's the zealousness that I try to have when it comes to my follow up, my organization, my time management, and ensuring that I never let a good prospect go unworked. We talked about long sales cycle earlier. I've seen some really great reps in my time who are amazing people person, amazing at building that relationship, but terrible at their follow up. Like they send the
Sure.
first email and then they forget about it. But if it's a 9 month sales cycle, you got to stay in a crisp cadence, like every 2 weeks, touch the prospect. And so to me, it's marrying those two things. And for me, I got trained on Salesforce long ago when it kind of first was growing, and a lot of the older guys were resistant. And I felt like it was actually a superpower for me because I never lost time in worrying about my pipeline. I knew that if I set things up correctly, I set my follow-up cadence, you could really kind of automate that for yourself too, where you're presented each morning when you walk in with the most important things to do in your day to close your pipeline.
Yeah. Was there a pivotal moment in your career where you realized I've really found my niche?
Yeah, I think, you know, as you hear from clients and we hear from partners, it became clear to me like 2018-ish, as the world was changing and people were still digesting the great financial crisis, and like how do you think about portfolios and how do you think about finance following that. There was just this groundswell where you had individuals interested in things like private markets. You had the big institutions coming from their higher perch, like the Yale endowment model, and they were meeting in the middle. And more you heard wealth managers asking about this stuff. And for me, I would say the corroborating moment was within those years, just hearing the number of high quality customers we were able to interact with and close in our business. And when you've got people who, own a small business or medium sized business that, generates $50 million a year in revenue, and they've got a large family office, they're coming to us for solutions that they're not even aware of, and they're not being served at the, private bank that's already catering to them. And so that really, I think, highlighted for me how interesting this space is and how underserved it was. If they're not getting their answers at JP Morgan Private Bank and they've got to come to somebody like us, that shows there's a need for it.
Mhm. What advice would you give to someone who wants to break into business development or sales leadership in the finance world?
I think you got to find, follow your curiosity to what space you're interested in. There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of technical skills you have to build on, right? Sometimes that's being licensed. A lot of times it's just like very deep understanding of products and the ability to, either provide in-depth analysis, or at least be able to convey that analysis verbally out to a prospect. And so like finding the areas that get you excited every day to come to work and following that curiosity is really important, because it can be a bit mind-numbing and a numbers-based business. And for some people, that's just a not the right fit for them. So I think finding the place within there's a lot of different things you could do in financial services. So like, what's the area that piques your curiosity? That's where I would start with. And then look at successful people in that particular vertical and understand, what are their credentials? What did they have to do to get to that spot? Does it take a number of FINRA and SEC licenses? Do I need an MBA? Do I need a lot of on the ground training? Like, what do I need to fill that role? And that's how I would kind of think about it, is like, follow your curiosity first, and then see what the successful people have on their resume, and start to just like work out a plan for how you can add those things into your own skill set.
I like that. In your experience, what do clients really want when engaging with a sales professional in this space?
I think they want somebody who's consultative, who, again, back to the idea of like a single transaction or a broader ongoing relationship. Like a great example is in my email box this morning from a gentleman we helped set up a really specialized retirement plan with last year. We helped him do that work. It's done. Our piece of that pie was really completed, but he's coming back again to me this morning with sort of a complex follow-up question. That the great news is he's coming back to us as trusted experts to help him answer that question. He's again a guy who could get service from many different providers across the space, but he's choosing to ask us for our help, which is wonderful and humbling. And so coming back to him with as much of a deep and proactive response as I can, to stay focused on his problem, not drift away into something that's not pertinent, but sort of like just a fun side comment, but at least give him all the information I can to be consultative, to continue to build in his mind that we really add value, whether he uses us or not for this particular transaction he has in mind this time. Is not my goal one way or the other. My goal is just to continue to build on that. And it's exciting for us to get that second touch here to add value again. And so I think it is to be genuinely consultative and to listen and to respond to what they actually want to achieve, not just trying to force a strategy down somebody's throat, but understanding what are their goals and what can you do to help them, elucidate the options.
Sure. So I guess along the lines of being consultative, how have recent economic or regulatory shifts affected how you approach your role and how you advise clients?
It's been a lot. There's been a lot this year, and just in the past few years, and we've had changes over time to things like the fiduciary rule, which has to do how wealth managers deal with clients. In our business, on a daily basis, we deal with a lot of tax and retirement acts. So like the CARES Act that came out or in the COVID times changed a lot of the rules about taking money in and putting it back into retirement accounts. It added some great flexibility, but that's where we as a team, we've got to stay educated on all of those nuances. And so it requires consistent education on our part too, to continuously being up to speed on what's going on. We're very fortunate that our leadership team is highly tuned in. We have a pair of tax attorneys that lead our company, and they are great on the details and then really good at explaining it in a fun way, where again, like, people just want to know the summary, how it applies to them. These thousands of pages of legal code is a lot to handle for just the layman. So let's find a way to understand it ourselves, but then make sure that we can explain it in a simple way to somebody else.
Buffett way. How do you see the private market ecosystem evolving in the next 3 to 5 years, and what role will directed custody play in that evolution?
Yeah, it's an interesting time. President Trump just introduced the idea of adding alternative assets into 401k plans in a larger way. This has been a conversation and a move that's been happening. We play a role in that today, but you're seeing that more and more from the big 401k providers. So think they're trying to move sort of downstream for the things they've done in the past and offer these bespoke solutions. On the same side, you've got folks who are more like on the ground in private markets, sort of growing their way up into the middle of the pantheon of like biggest, middle, and small firms. And so we're meeting in the middle here, and I think it's creating a lot of really good outcomes for individual investors. It's just going to give them more choice, going to give them more opportunity, gives them a chance to invest like the big boys, but do it without paying outrageous fees and jumping through an insane amount of annoying hoops, right? So it's cutting away some of that friction, some of that PDF heavy annoying legacy that this industry has had, and just trimming it down so that average investor Joe can approach it and get some value out of it. So I think it's an exciting time. We'll see the big guys keep working towards the retail investor, and for us at Directed, it's only driving interest and awareness for the kind of things we're trying to do.
I love it. We appreciate your insight into the financial services market.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Andrew.
All right, that's a wrap on today's episode with Mark Peck. A huge thanks to Mark for breaking down the private markets and sharing what it really takes to win in sales. If you picked up a new strategy or mindset shift, don't just keep it to yourself, put it into action. And if you're enjoying the show, be sure to follow, share, and leave us a review so more sales pros can level up with us. Until next time, stay focused, stay hungry, and keep hitting those sales goals.
This episode is brought to you by Goals.com, the sales performance platform built to help teams stay focused, motivated, and on track. While most CRMs just track data, Goals.com drives real results. It's simple, affordable, and designed to help your sales team hit targets faster, without the headache of complex setup or costly consultants. Whether you're using a CRM or not, Goals.com works seamlessly to elevate your performance. Book a fun, fast demo today at Goals.com.